what you could have put down, let's just say 25 or 30% when interest rates were 6%, because interest rates are now at 7%, you're going to have to put down more money, right? So it means that all of a sudden now your down payment is going to have to be substantially higher, which alters the deal drastically. So keep in mind that as an example here in this deal, I mean, again, I don't know what this deal is. I'm not familiar with what this was. I literally just opened up this tab 10 minutes before the training started. But just to give you some reference, right, if you just focus specifically on IRR and cash on cash year one, which obviously cash on cash isn't horrible, but if you look at IRR just for a quick moment, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to change from 75% now. You can see IRR is going to change. We just at 12%. That's it. Right, anyways, to 60%, we're going to go down to 10%. So the point is, and obviously these are minute changes, but long story short, you're going to have to be putting down more money because your debt service coverage ratio is going to be affected. Specifically, I've been talking to a lot of different investors. There's also going to be a lot of investors right now in this type of market, this type of situation, what's going on in the economy. There's going to be a lot of investors who are fucking terrified, right? And who are going to be like, it's not for me. I'm holding off. These could have been great buyers for you in 2022, 23, maybe even 24. But there are going to be many of them who are like, I'm done. 2025, I'm out, right? I'm going to be on the sidelines till things cool off. There's going to be plenty of investors that do that. And then there's going to be the other side of investors that are like, I'm still fucking 100% focused. Let's go buy 5 deals this year. I was just talking to a good friend of mine who's a great buyer of mine. We've done a lot of business. We own property together the other day. And he's like, when we were speaking, he's like, Henry, I'm done. Like, I'm not interested in buying anything this year, at least while interest rates are as high as they are. And I own many properties with this guy, very successful guy. And then I literally just spoke to an investor this morning, who's another very good friend of mine. We own property together. We've done a lot of business together. And he's like, Henry, I'm ready to buy. I want to buy at least $20 million worth of real estate this year, no matter what. And we already have over $10 million in contract. So like there is two polar opposite types of investors in this type of market.
Oh, this is Aggie.
Very cautious and careful when you're speaking to these individuals and deciphering, is this person in or is this person out? Because if you're going to continue to send this person deals when they're not, not actually interested in doing some business, you're going to waste a lot of time. Because if I continue to send deals to my partner, right? Like, again, we do a lot of business together, we own real estate together. If I send him a deal, it's not that the deal sucks. It's that he's just not interested in buying right now. And I'm going to struggle to try to sell deals if all of my investors that I'm trying to sell deals to feel the same way he does. So you need to be careful and be constantly paying attention like, hey, is this somebody who's gung-ho, ready to do some business, or are they on the sidelines like, hey, this isn't for me? And be very cautious of who you're sending a lot of deals to, because you're going to have a lot of investors who, like, again, you could have a really good deal in front of them and they still will choose to say no, right? They will choose to say like, this isn't right, this isn't a good deal. They'll want to, be very, very aggressive on the deal, but it's only because they're not interested in really buying anything this year. Long story short, generate more leads. We need better deals, right? As interest rates rise, you need to find better deals. Be more aggressive when it comes to making your letters of intent. Be more aggressive with submitting them faster at aggressive prices. Because guys, listen, there's a lot of people who are still willing to buy. The deals just have to be better. They just have to be, instead of 8 caps 90 days ago, they now have to be 8.5s or 9s, right? They just need to be a smidge better than they were before, and that's just how we need to pivot and adjust. Alec has this lead. It's like an office setup, essentially. It's actually a funeral home / morgue that's been there for quite some time. The property is only like 7,600 square feet. It's 2 stories. I'm going to try to get you a little bit of an image without sharing the... So anyways, this is the property, 7,600 square feet across 2 floors. Rent is $18,000 a month gross. So let's start plugging in some numbers. Let's come back to here. So a couple things. Number one, the guy wants how much money? 1.3 million, I think?
Yeah.
$1.3 million. Okay, DD and civil, you're going to probably spend like 15 grand, maybe less, maybe 10. Closing costs, you're probably going to be at around like, I don't know, maybe 50 grand, probably less. Whatever, we'll put not $50, 50 grand. Okay. Next, we're not going to touch much of this, but I'm going to put 7.5% interest as a placeholder, and probably, because it's office, I'm probably going to have to put close to 50% down. So anyways, this will be a placeholder. I'm going to put amortization over here. Also, I'm probably going to have to sell this at like, who's trying to get in here? I got you, Marisol. Okay. when I move over here, I'm probably going to go to a cap rate of like 10 as a placeholder, just because these types of properties need to be trading at a crazy high cap rate probably for someone to make sense of investing in it. First thing, again, these are all placeholders because none of this is going to matter until I start plugging in some serious numbers, but that's good for placeholders. Let's go over to income. Okay, here we go. All right. We have one tenant, so we're going to get rid of this. We have one tenant, and we're just going to call it tenant. Okay, and it's 7,600 square feet. You have one tenant. They pay 18 grand a month, which we're going to figure out is probably around 22 a foot. Nope. Oh my God. They're at what? 30 a foot? Okay, so let's go to 28.5. All right, close enough. And then they obviously are going to have expenses. We're going to remove this. We're going to remove all of the pro forma income numbers because they're in a long-term lease. And they have a lease for 10 years, no increases. Absolutely zero increases. So I'm going to go this increase here. I'm going to go to 0 because we need it to be the same amount of money indefinitely. Okay? Next, we are going to expenses, which, by the way, real quick, I want to keep you guys posted. I still typically will have some type of vacancy rate. You can probably come down to like 2.5%, but you need something. Like, you absolutely need something. You can't have nothing. We're going to have 2.5. Maybe you do 3%, something like that. You need to have some figure. You're not going to have 0. You're never, ever, ever. I don't give a fuck if it's Amazon and they sign a 100-year lease. You need to have some allocation of vacancy. You can do 1 fucking percent, but it's 1% annually, right? Like, whatever. You need to have something. You can't have 0. Let's go to taxes on this property. 4 grand? What the f? Expecting substantially more. That is like nothing. Insurance.
No, it's Detroit.
Oh, it's just crazy. It's amazing. I love seeing cheap ass taxes. Last year's taxes though for 2023 was 14 grand. So I don't know how they went down to 4. Insurance here is probably going to be at least $4,000. Water, sewer. I mean, these are all going to be estimates. You're probably going to have to put something for all of these. I mean, like the tenant is probably paying the vast majority of a lot of this, I'm imagining.
Yeah, he said he has operating expenses of $1,500 a month. It doesn't have the best bookkeeping, but he was sure on that.
Okay, well, look, you get snow, you have some landscaping, gas, and all this kind of stuff. You're probably going to have it. Obviously, they're probably going to pay a good portion of it, so I'm going to just lower these down to $1,200 a piece. Because it's not like you don't have something. Marketing costs, it's fine. Trash removal. I'm imagining a lot of this is already going to be taken care of. $4,200. These pay $1,500 a month in expenses, which is 18 grand a year. I am going to say that is cheap as fuck. And they're not including a vacancy rate. They're not including management. They're also not including a repair budget here. I can just drop a lot of this cost, though, down. Yeah. So 18 is insane. Like, the 18 doesn't make any sense. He obviously is going to have management. He's not calculating. A bank is going to allocate many of these different things here. Obviously, it's a smaller deal, so maybe you get away with $2,400 for reserves. They're going to have some type of cost across the board. You can take out marketing. Trash is obviously still going to happen. Anyways, long story short, I'm at 38.5, not 18. I think that is probably a more appropriate number. Even if you took out all the utilities, because that's what they're paying, I'm still at 35 grand, right? I think this is way more accurate than what he's actually saying. So long story short, now we've plugged in some numbers. Let's get back to business. So here we are. I'm just curious, where the heck are we at with cash flows and things like that? Okay, so 52 grand, that makes sense. Operating costs, 36 grand a year, like we talked about. Okay, that's fair. Net operating income is 175. I guess you're still probably about right with that. 175, fair. And my debt service is going to cost us 55 grand a year. That means we're going to cash flow $120,000 in cash flow for 1.3. So what are we buying? We're buying it at a 13 cap. I guess that makes sense. Yeah. A 13 cap. Price per square foot is 171. Detroit, that is a little bit north of where I think we should be, but whatever. Cash on cash year 1 is obviously pretty damn nice. We like it. Now look, guys, I want you to understand something. This deal might sound like a dream. Okay, like, oh my God, a 13 cap, cash on cash is 16, 17%. It's a fucking office building. Obviously, there's going to be some scenarios that like skew the mental frameworks, right, of like where I actually think the value is. And by the way, if you look at future value, which is us trying to resell the deal at a 10 cap, It's at 1.7. So long story short with this type of deal where I'm already seeing you have a great DSCR, if you can get a loan for 70, a 70 LTV at let's just say an 8% cap rate, doing a DSCR loan, you're still cash flowing very nicely. Your cash on cash goes up because you're putting less money down. My thought process is this. This is the type of deal I would try to broker quickly or wholesale if the opportunity arises. First and foremost, you're going to have to find somebody who's totally willing to get their hands dirty on this type of weird type of property and weird tenant. This is not like your typical, if you and I are investors and we're going to go like, hey, let's go buy a great deal. The first thing we're going to say is, we're not going to say is, let's go buy a funeral home. Like that is probably not the first thing we're going to say. That being said, keep in mind that, we are going to be looking for the ideal client who's okay with this type of strange deal. Which, by the way, this is also going to be a 25-year term, so it's going to change things slightly. But, in my mind, I think that, look, if we can come back to this guy at maybe $1 million, right? Because I'm trying to get my price per square foot down. I want to be below, I think this price per square foot is actually very high. Obviously, it looks like it's probably a pretty looking deal. From the street view, it looks okay. Pictures you sent me were not horrible. But obviously for Detroit, we can't be paying a crazy high per square foot. So long story short, I'm probably going to be somewhere closer to $1 million. Let's see what that puts us at. Yeah, I'm probably going to be at $1 million, and I'm probably going to try to sell it for 1.2, right? I'm going to try to buy it at a 17. I mean, I know these numbers sound ridiculous, but if you've ever seen Detroit, this kind of makes sense, right? Anyways, I'm looking at probably buying it close to, a 17 and a half and flipping it for a 13, right? Flipping it for a 14. Right? I need to make the deal so good that someone goes, I don't care that it's Detroit. I don't care that I'm paying a decent price per square foot. I like the deal enough to say that I'm interested.